everybody. I'm Christopher Green, Greenway Radio, live broadcasting around, I guess, a very tyrannical world, a very tyrannical United States of America. I just got a text from one of my best friends out of California. He said, hey, you want to move to Texas? Trust me, I've thought about it. You know, Arizona is a pretty darn good place to be. A lot of freedom, liberty lovers out here, but Texas does have the most guns. And now that they're coming after our guns, now that they've threatened the very Second Amendment, our right to bear arms, the U.S. Constitution, I would say Texas is probably one of the, if not the safest places to be. Because when the first states begin seceding from the Union, you're going to want protection. You're going to want arms. Yeah, this is pretty amazing stuff, and it's tough not to be incredibly irked by it. It's tough not to be incredibly passionate about it. We put out a series of videos the past few days. I want to commend Topher Morrison, our AMTV News contributor. He did a wonderful job with his video presentation today. I think it's one of his best. Please check it out, share it, get it out to the viewing public. He's got ton of information in the video. It's entertaining, but we get out a lot of information on crime statistics, what's happening around the world, and just drilling down to the truth of the motivations behind President Obama and his counterparts has always been to come after the guns. Always. When President Barack Obama was elected in 2008, it was the agenda to trample the Constitution, finish the crash of the financial markets, which was an orchestrated event, much like many believe September 11th was an orchestrated event by our government. Take it from a guy who was in the financial services industry, who was a Wall Streeter himself, who worked for Merrill Lynch, one of the big boy firms. I will tell you without a shadow of a doubt, 2008 was an orchestrated event to rob you, to confiscate your wealth, to transfer trillions of dollars from you into the pockets of these criminals, then to bail themselves out on the backs of you so that they can put you even in more debt. You know, so we did this even after World War II. We won the war. We put all the countries we defeated in debt. You know, here you go, Germany. Here's massive amounts of debt that you now owe us through all these third-party bodies that we set up. So it's the same thing. So put the American people in massive debt, get them dependent on the government to the point where they rely and need the government. One of the reasons President Barack Obama was elected, why he was elected to a second term, is the people have no choice. They need this guy. With millions of Americans on unemployment insurance, Medicare, Social Security, and all these other unfunded liabilities amounting in the trillions of dollars in government programs, they don't have a choice. Got to vote for this guy. I mean, hey, where else are they going to get their cell phones and EBT cards from? Obama's doling them out, baby. Like the gangbanger that he is. You want an EBT card? Vote for me. You want free money? Vote for me. Hey, you want to buy a house? Want to buy a house? I'll cut you a check for $8,000. We'll call it a nifty little tax credit. Remember that? Remember how I sucked in a bunch of losers into buying homes? Market still dropped an extra, 15, 20, 30% in some areas, even after the government was encouraging you to get involved. Like, hey, we'll cut you a check for $8,000, but you'll lose $100K in the next few months because the market's still deteriorating. Sound like a good deal to you? Debt was always the intention. Now that they've got your money, now that they've transferred the wealth, and now more importantly, they've made you dependent on the government, because the government's only good at one thing: getting bigger, larger, and spending more of your money and getting into more debt. Debt equals slavery, and slavery is the agenda. Again, keep you, the peasant, working for them. Nothing's changed in thousands, millions of years. Keep you, the slave, working for them. Keep you dependent. Keep you, the rat, running the wheel. Got to make your mortgage payment after all. Got to pay those credit cards. Got to pay that car payment. I mean, hey, what else are you going to do? You got to go work for these multi-billion-dollar corporations, or at least a lot of people think they do. I'm living proof you don't. I'm living proof, and a lot of people out there are, that, hey, you can just pretty much give a middle finger to the government. See how they like it. Build your own life on your own terms. But most people want to be taken care of, and it's exactly why they're pro-Obama. That's exactly why they trust him, just like millions of people trusted Hitler when he rose to power. You know, Hitler making comments like, hey, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now that we've registered all of the gun owners here and we're working on confiscation, the country will be safer now. In fact, I need to pull up the direct quote someone sent me the other day, something Hitler said, something about now the police force will be able to police and the streets will be safer, and, you know, how it's a good thing that they're confiscating guns, just like how Obama's positioning it. It's a good thing. You know, hey, all these people are killing each other at movie theaters, and, you know, these MK Ultra killers that we created, built, and propagandized in the first place, and drug on SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors. You know, it's going to protect you from these people, these domestic terrorists, you know, the lone wolf. You know, these crazy people like James Holmes with red, you know, orange hair. He likes to dye that. They said he smirked the other day when they saw a picture of him holding a gun or something like that at his trial or his pre-trial. They're deciding whether or not to take it to trial. They're going to protect you from these killers, is what they're telling you. They're going to make the streets safer. You see, these liberals, and it's not even a Democrat-Republican game anymore. I don't even care about that. But these liberals, these pro-Obamanites, as maybe is a better term for them, they want to be taken care of and want their guns. They want to give them up. Like, hey, take my guns, Obama. Take care of me. You're going to protect our streets. And I see all these dumb shits on national television like, if I can't drop my daughter at school without being murdered, I don't know what to do. If I can't go to a movie theater without the threat of being gunned down, oh, Obama, please do something for the country. Please do something to keep my streets safe. These idiots I'll see on national television. You know, the only thing that's going to stop a James Holmes killer in a movie theater is a bullet to his head. That's the only thing that's going to stop him. That's the only thing that's going to stop a bad guy is your right to self-defense and your ability to pull a gun and put a bullet right between his eyes. I use the example in my video I put out yesterday. I mean, think about it for a minute. Do you want to be the guy or gal at home in the middle of the night when a dozen masked men break into your home and begin the process of raping your 12-year-old daughter? Are you going to give Obama a phone call? Like, hey, Obama, I want to report a crime. Are you going to call the cops? Yes, 911, I'd like to report a crime, please. Sure, I'll hold. Or, while your daughter's about to be gangbanged by a dozen masked men, do you want to be able to pull a shotgun and blow the shit out of these mothers? Who do you want to be? And I have a funny feeling all these liberals and Obamanites want to be the guy with the gun as well. And see, that's the point. It's not that President Obama doesn't like guns. It's not that Joe Biden, Mr. VP, who's helping push. See how they're using him? They're trying to use the vice president as the one to shelter the hatred towards right now. Like, it's not Obama. It's VP Joe Biden pushing for the executive order. So Obama can kind of like protect himself politically. Like it's my lackey doing it. It's him, Joe. He's the one that wants the guns, even though it's Obama at the helm. But more importantly than that, it's his handlers, the power elite, the power structure that runs America today and the world. It's not that these people don't like guns. In fact, these people love guns. And they have no problem murdering you. No problem at all. They do it every single day. I mean, what do you think we're doing in the Middle East right now? We're murdering people. Obama loves killing. He's a psychopath just like James Holmes. Most of these people, I'm not going to say everyone in the government is, but a good portion. I mean, they love to kill, man. Come on, let's get real. In fact, if you're a good murderer, in the opinion of Barack Obama in the Middle East right now, he'll give you a silver star before you come home. Like, hey, good job ransacking that village and, putting umpteenth bullets in an entire family. Here's your silver star. You're an American hero. Power and control comes through the barrel of a gun. And that is why they want the guns. It's not that they're going to get rid of guns. No, they're going to have all of them for themselves. Do you understand that? It's about power. It's about control. Just like Gandhi, through civil disobedience in the revolution in India, they used that as a tool to overthrow their oppressive government. Right after he ceded power, India went on a massive killing spree. I don't know if a lot of you history buffs know that, but they did. So, they achieve their means through nonviolence, and then as soon as they take power, they begin blowing people away. It's exactly what Hitler did. Took away the guns through confiscation, promised peace and protection, and then the next thing you know, you're rotting in a concentration camp, which is the equivalent of a FEMA camp today. And they're ready. They're absolutely ready. And, let's not forget, too, all these loudmouth liberals. I saw someone drop some comments on this on the video we put out yesterday, and I thought it was really pertinent to the conversation we're having. Said, for all you loudmouths out there that want to extinguish the Second Amendment, get rid of your guns, realize that the First Amendment is protected by the Second Amendment. Think about it. Freedom of speech is next, because without guns, there's no freedom of speech. I mean, guns are the only thing that we have left, America. We've already been gang raped by the Obama regime. They've already taken and stolen everything from us. And it's not just the blame on Obama. People think I have all this, angst just in particular against Democrats and Obama. No. President George W. Bush is equally just as responsible for the tyranny we're experiencing today. Both of these people are evil psychopaths, murderers. I would argue Obama's worse, in my opinion, because I've never seen a president use this many executive orders in such a short period of time and kill so many people. So, he's definitely raised the bar on tyranny. But this is about power. This is about control. And honestly, America should be shaking in its boots right now, because just look at history, take a close look, use it as a historical precedent, use it as one. Right after they have the guns, right after you're disarmed, they kill you next. Happens again and again and again and again. Give man too much power, give man too much control, leave him to his own devices, and he'll kill you. That's human nature. Going to flat out murder you. And so once they have the guns, Obama's going to go on a murderous rampage. And I sure as hell hope it doesn't happen, but it's not going to surprise me to see millions of Americans lined up and shot in the streets. Once they have their guns, once they've taken them from you and you cannot defend yourself anymore, what do you think they're going to allow? Dissenting political opinion after they have your guns? No, this is going to be like China or North Korea, man. They're going to line you up in the front of your homes and put a bullet right through your effing brain in front of your family. And then they're going to round everybody up, put them on buses, take them to FEMA camps as political enemies. And they're going to kill you, whether or not they do it directly through the barrel of a gun, because at that point they'll have all the guns, or they're going to starve you. And you're just going to be deprived of everyday necessities. You're going to starve to death, like what we saw with the disintegration of the USSR, with the collapse of Russia. Remember, the Russian people used to be armed, man. They used to be armed to the teeth. But before the collapse, they disarmed everybody. Then everything collapsed, and they starved the people and kill them. And then, literally, the collapse of the USSR, literally people were cannibalizing each other. Literally. I'm not making this up. Study your history. Literally, They were so poverty-stricken and the government was starving them, just like has happened in North Korea in recent years with Kim Jong-il. You know, you starve that's another way you incapacitate them. Literally, it turned to cannibalism in parts of Russia. People were so desperate they were eating each other. I want you to think about this for a moment. Eating each other. Leave man to his own devices, concentrate power into a single authoritative body, like what we're doing here in America, and watch the house of cards collapse. I mean, that's what we have in store. Cannibalism, murder, FEMA camps, and death once they have the guns. Not a pretty picture. I'm not here to, make you feel better. I'm just here to tell you the truth. We'll be back in just a moment. I'm Christopher Green, hard hitting and in your face. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Rocking and rolling to little tunes there. So back to business. So we know that the federal government, through President Barack Obama and his counterparts, will begin the process of murdering millions of us en masse. This again has been done countless times in history. Once they have the guns, they kill you next. Bottom line, very simple. In fact, there was a gentleman, I reported on this yesterday. This was reported all around the internet, all around the mainstream media. My Fox Atlanta, Opposing Views, Huffington Post, Tube Filter, WSB Atlanta, Guns.com. Gentleman by the name of Keith Ratliff of FPS Russia, one of the most popular YouTube channels on the World Wide Web today, murdered. Highly suspicious, huge gun advocate. Many of you are familiar with the channel. I think it's one of the top 10 most popular channels on YouTube today. Murdered. In fact, his last tweet talked about gun rights, the Second Amendment. Suddenly, he's just dead out in Carnesville, Georgia. Highly suspicious. In fact, when people first reported on it, they said, hey, don't, let's be cognizant of the family, et cetera. And I think that's, we should absolutely do that. But, they weren't really alluding to the fact he was murdered. It was like, was it a suicide? What happened? But they said, it couldn't have been a suicide, but now they're investigating it as a murder because that's what it was based on the information we're getting. So people are dying left and right now, just getting killed, whacked. It just, happen to be huge gun rights activists. So we're dealing with that. Incredibly sad. My heart goes out to the family. I want to read you our Second Amendment here. It's important that we refamiliarize ourselves with this thing, this little thing that Obama likes to piss all over. It's called the Constitution. This is what the Second Amendment says. Quote, a well-regulated militia. Notice how militia is the first thing that they talk about in the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia. These people always say, hey, why we don't need AK-47s. We don't need these high-powered rifles or guns. Yes, we do. How are we expected to arm a well-regulated militia without the equivalent weaponry that our police department and federal government and Obama's Secret Service possesses? What are we going to fight them with knives, baseball bats? Come and get us. Is that what we're going to do? Is that what our founding fathers had in mind? We're going to put up our fists as they gun us down with machine guns? A well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. It's the first thing it says. It talks about our well-regulated militia, our right to form militias. Got a lot of them out here in Arizona, a ton of them out in Texas, and they're armed to the teeth. Thank God. Thank God. Well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, being necessary to the security of a free state. And so not only are they infringing on the Second Amendment, they're infringing in particular to our right to form a well-regulated militia. Infringement. That's what they're doing. When they take away AK-47s, they take away these automatic weapons, they take away magazine clips holding more than 10 bullets a pop. They are infringing on not just the Second Amendment, but our ability to form a well-regulated militia to defend ourselves from an oppressive, murderous government. This isn't my opinion. This is a fact. Your government is responsible for more murder and is the number one cause for non-natural death than any other way that you could die. More than cancer, more than disease, more than accident or suicide or natural causes. Your government is responsible for more killing and more death than any other cause in human history. Non-natural death. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. Go look it up. There's been a lot of scholars that have dedicated their lives studying this type of material. Read through the numbers yourself. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of people murdered by their government. Not my opinion, a fact. It's called democide. D-E-M-O-C-I-D-E. Democide. In fact, there's a gentleman, I can't think of the scholar at the moment, out of Hawaii. He's kind of the main gentleman behind this research who's documented this, who spent his entire life talking about this. In fact, I cited him specifically with my Andrew Breitbart movie because, of course, Andrew Breitbart was murdered by your government. Murdered. He was considered an enemy of the government, so they killed him. Just like we know for a fact, because Obama has told us so, and he's actually congratulated himself for it, murdered Anwar al-Awlaki, another U.S. citizen, without a trial, without his ability or right to defend himself in a court of law. Something important for the American people to understand. There is no Constitution anymore in terms of our rulership and how they are governing us. Of course, there's a Constitution. Of course, it's one of the most sacred document, maybe outside of the Bible, that many of us can think of. But there is no government anymore, is what I'm trying to stress. When President Barack Obama uses executive order, which he's done more than any other president in the history of America, when he bypasses Congress at will through executive action, there is no government anymore. I want you to understand that. There is no Congress. If the president can dictate whatever he so chooses, and there's no balance of power, there's no branches of government balancing each other out, representing the people, then there is no government. The only thing you have is a Hitler rising to power who's about to kill you. Do you understand that? Murder you. Does America get that? Because all of these loudmouth liberals that I keep seeing on the mainstream television that say, give my guns away, protect me, Obama. I want to see the tune they'll be singing when they're sitting in FEMA camps watching their family murdered by the barrel of Obama's gun. They won't be loudmouths too much longer. I guarantee you that. And the only people fighting back, the only people that will protect you, in my opinion, are the well-regulated militias that exist in places like Arizona and mostly in Texas that are armed to the teeth and have been training for something like this in this type of moment in American history. You know, you hope that it never has to come to something like this. You hope that you never reach a stage where the government is literally taking your guns away, literally telling you to your face, F you, F the Constitution, and we're going to murder you. You know, there's all this talk about guns. You know, guns, you know, who needs these guns? Why would you need, you know, Alex Jones has 50 guns, these people say. What a crazy person. You know, like, oh, I don't want him having a gun. Our right to self-defense is one of the most fundamental rights that a human being can have. I don't care where you are, where you live in the world, what country you're from, or where you reside to this day. It's one of the most fundamental rights a human being has. Let's play out some scenarios here because they tell us it's the guns. It's the guns. So let's talk some hypotheticals. Once they have the guns, okay, let's say, well, we're not going to say let's say, when the executive order is passed, and when they have the guns and they confiscate these automatic weapons, what happens when the next MK Ultra murder rampage occurs, propelled by the federal government and the Obama administration? Because they're going to do this in stages. You know, they're going to start with the AK-47s, the automatic rifles, and then it will be they'll kind of inch it up a notch. It'll be other types of guns, and then it'll be every gun. It'll be all handguns, it'll be everything. They'll say, well, you know, there's still killing going on, people. I mean, we still have people going into movie theaters with 10 rounds or less in their handgun murdering dozens of people. So we just have to get rid of guns completely. And they're going to sell you on the idea that we live in this utopic society now, that guns are no longer needed. And then they're going to kill you in front of your home, in front of your children. Like many of these dictators, Hitler, Mao, have done before in history. That's just how they roll. Give a man too much power, too much control, leave him to his own devices, and that's what happens. That's why we've always had a check and balance system here in the United States to prevent that. It's exactly why we have the Second Amendment. You know, when your federal government says we're going to infringe on your Second Amendment, what they are saying to you is we are declaring war on you, the American people. We are declaring war on millions of Americans around the world, around the country. So you see how this is just going to escalate, especially when the next terrorist event happens? Or how about this? Even from a terrorism perspective, think about what terrorists around the world, whether or not that be Al-Qaeda or other factions that virulently hate Americans in America today. Think about what they're thinking right now. They are just sitting behind the scenes and they are just smirking, laughing to themselves like, oh yeah. The next time we strike, it's going to be that much easier to kill Americans, is what they're thinking, because now they won't be armed. So imagine when we actually do get a legitimate terrorist attack in the United States, or we're invaded by a foreign enemy. Oh, it's going to be easy to roll right through America, man. It's going to be so easy to take us over. No one's going to have any guns. What are you going to do? Are you going to box them? Are you going to box an AK-47? Are you going to box an assault rifle? No, you're not. You're not going to be Mike Tyson out there. You're going to get gunned down by the enemy in about half a second. Or let's play some other scenarios out here. Let's say movie theaters, God forbid, start getting bombed. So people start going to Home Depot in these other areas and putting materials together, learning how to build bombs, and then just blowing up shit. And let's say, God forbid, we have a terrorist event where a terrorist of some kind starts blowing up movie theaters and killing everyone in the theater. What, are we going to outlaw bombs? Are we going to outlaw Home Depot? Is there going to be a war against Home Depot and Ace Hardware and hardware stores? Like, there's a war now against Home Depot. They can no longer sell products to the public. We're no longer to have certain materials. Well, is that the next war, a war on bombs? This is just stupidity. You know, what if someone comes into a movie theater and starts beating with a baseball bat a dozen people and kills them with a blunt object, which actually kills more Americans on an annual basis than guns do? Fact. I mean, baseball bats is the game of baseball, an American sport that is about as American as it comes. Are they going to just ban that and say, well, You can still play baseball, but you just can't use a bat anymore. We're going to have to, I don't know, you're going to have to swing something else. What I'm trying to get at here is, do you get the stupidity of this? Do you get the utter dipshit-esque nature of this? I'll be right back. I'm Christopher Green, hard-hitting and in your face. Hey, everybody, we are back. I'm Christopher Green on a cloudy day out here in Phoenix, Arizona. A really dark time, sunset. Put a video out yesterday, a sunset setting. The sun is setting on American gun ownership on the Second Amendment. Let me read you a quote here from Patrick Henry. He says, "We should not forget that the spark which ignited the American Revolution was caused by the British attempt to confiscate the firearms of the colonists." Exactly what's happening today. Another quote I liked. See if I can find it here. This is from James A. Donald. It says, "The usual road to slavery is that first they take away your guns, then they take away your property, then last of all, they tell you to shut up and say you are enjoying it." And it's kind of interesting because they've already taken away our property. I mean, there really isn't property ownership in this country, not in a world of mortgages and short sales and foreclosures. And, you know, when you have to leverage your home a gazillion % to the actual equity that you own in it, there is no property rights. But Americans keep somehow, I don't know, making those mortgage payments thinking they actually own them. And then when you do own it, you still got to pay property taxes. And if you don't do that or you miss a payment on the off chance that, I don't know, you're out of town or something, they'll just take the property from you by force. There was a really great article I hope all of you read. In fact, maybe someone can drop this link in our chat room. It's titled, you can just Google this yourself, "Americans Never Give Up Your Guns." Americans never give up your guns. A little advice from a Russian. These days, there are few things to admire about the socialist, bankrupt, and culturally degenerating USA. But at least so far, one thing remains: the right to bear arms and use deadly force to defend oneself and possessions. And I actually love that intro. I love that intro because it's so true. These days, there are few things to admire about the socialist, bankrupt, and culturally degenerating United States. Couldn't it be more true? This will probably come as a total shock to most of my Western readers. I'm reading this article here, says, but at one point, Russia was one of the most heavily armed societies on earth. This was, of course, when we were free under the Tsar. Weapons from swords and spears to pistols, rifles, and shotguns were everywhere, common items among the people. People carried them concealed, they carried them holstered. Fighting knives were a prominent part of many traditional attires. And those little tubes crisscrossing on the costumes, you know, I mean, the article kind of cut off there. Well, those are bullet holders for rifles. So let me continue here. It says various armies, such as the Poles, during the times of troubles, or Napoleon, or the Germans, even as the Tsarist state collapsed under the weight of World War I and Wall Street moneys, found that holding Russian lands was much, much harder than taking them. And taking was no easy walk in the park, but a bloodbath all its own. In holding, one faced an extremely well-armed and aggressive population hell-bent on exterminating or driving out the aggressor. The well-armed population was what allowed the various white factions to rise up, no matter how disorganized politically and militarily they were in 1918, and wage a savage civil war against the Reds. It should be noted that many of these armies were armed peasants, villagers, farmers, and merchants, protecting their own. If it had not been for Washington's clandestine support of and for the Reds, history would have gone quite differently. Moscow fell. Russia broke apart, for example, not from a lack of weapons to defend it, but of the lying guile of the Reds. 10,000 Reds took Moscow and were opposed only by some few hundred of officer cadets and their instructors. Even then, the battle was fierce and losses high. However, in the city alone at that time lived over 30,000 military officers, both active and retired, all with their own issued weapons and ammunition. plus tens of thousands of other citizens who were armed. The Soviets promised to leave them all alone if they did not intervene. They did not. And for that, they were asked afterwards to come register themselves and their weapons, where they were promptly shot. So the point I'm trying to make, I'm not going to read the entire article. You can read it for yourself. Again, the title is Americans Never Give Up Your Guns. Is that when you give up your guns, we've seen in history time and time again, what happens next? What's next? So this is extremely dangerous. This is an extremely dangerous time to be an American. And, President Obama, I see here, he's indoctrinating another cohort here today. Here's Obama's message to GOP by appointing Lew Treasury Secretary. So President Barack Obama is sending a pointed message to Republicans by nominating Jack Lew as the new Treasury Secretary in replacement of Timothy Geithner, getting the rats, leaving the nest. All these bailout connoisseurs leaving the nest. And ever since the gun ban talk has intensified, and now that we know, because we've heard it from the mouth of our Vice President Joe Biden, that they're going to come and use executive order and executive power to ban our guns, the NRA ranks have soared in recent days. I also found interesting that Google searches for Hitler gun control have spiked. Let's take a look at this here. As liberals propose more gun control, Google searches on Hitler gun control spike. Of course, the Drudge Report wrote a headline yesterday that says White House threatens executive orders on guns. Journalists were startled yesterday when Matt Drudge used photos of Hitler and Stalin on his Drudge Report website to highlight a story about Obama possibly issuing an executive order to tackle the gun issue. But according to research on Google Trends, web users' interest in the history of Hitler and gun control has spiked since Democrats began demanding more restrictions on high-capacity magazines and semi-automatic weapons. In December, the keywords Hitler gun control spiked to 100 rating, the rating given to Google's peak search volume since 2004. Hitler and guns showed 100 rating and a 99 rating for the month of January. So the search for Hitler gun control has spiked on the heels of President Obama's Hitler-type gun control. So a lot of good advice. Good advice from that article that I just read to you, part of it at least. America, never give up your guns. Really, I would recommend study your history. Study what happened during World War II. Study what happened with the collapse of Russia, other civilizations, Rome. Study all of this. Figure it out. It's pretty black and white. Take away your guns, and you're finished. Take away your guns, you can't defend yourself, and you're finished. Take away your guns, like the British were aiming to do before the outbreak of the American Revolution. Now they're taking away the guns again. Do these dictators ever learn? Do they? Do they ever quite get it? It doesn't seem like it. Another off story, Lance Armstrong will be going on Oprah so that he can bawl like a baby and somehow ask for America's forgiveness for being a lying psychopath sack of shit. So that should be an interesting piece to watch. You know, he's won all kinds of lawsuits for, people, he said falsely claiming that he was using and that he was blood doping and all this kind of, he's won millions of dollars, beating people with these lawsuits. And now he's coming out and saying, oh, yep, I'm a lying scumbag. That's right. Everything I told you wasn't true. Of course I was blood doping and using steroids or whatever he was, plugging up his butt at the time to, increase his stamina. The one thing that I can say, or that I would like to say about Lance Armstrong, is that everybody just wants to place the blame on him. Like, okay, he's a lying scumbag, which he is, obviously. But what they're missing is the great majority of cyclists, and I don't really follow cycling a whole lot, like most Americans, but the great majority of them, all of them are doping. We need to understand that. It wasn't just Lance Armstrong. The entire sport dopes. The entire sport does steroids, just like baseball. They do steroids because they get stronger. And of course, like Barry Bonds, their head grows exponentially so they can hit more home runs. So really, Lance Armstrong was just winning the Tour de France's consecutively. He was the best blood doper of the blood dopers. He was the best steroid user of the steroid users. So, I mean, in his, at least from what he should be thinking from his perspective, is he should really try outing everybody else, which is pretty much everybody doing the exact same thing he was doing. That's what the sport's about, using. Of course, these athletes are going to try to find an edge. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying I personally approve of it. I think it's unfair to the people that, aren't using, that, have integrity in their sports. But, it's a little bit of a different case and argument when everybody in the sport was using at the same time. There you have it, America. It's been a great show today. Please get this video, and I'll get this archive up on YouTube. Please share this everywhere you can. Honestly, we've been harping and we've been beating up on the gun issue really hard for the past few days because we're living through this surreal time where I've been saying this for 4 years, 3 years. They're coming for the guns. They're coming for the guns. Once they have the money, they're coming for the guns. And here they are after already confiscating the money, and now they're coming for the guns. I don't really know what else you want me to tell you. They're coming for your guns. Defend yourself. I'm Christopher Green. You've been listening to Green Wave Radio Live, alternative media television, the hardest hitting reality TV show on the planet. Thanks for sharing our message. Peace.